Salutations, my friends. Thank you for tuning into another mini-cast that we are doing. I've titled this one, The Breakaway Force, because we're going to be looking at things like the breakaway civilization, the deep state, the military-industrial complex, and all of the things that these people are trying to do to us and what this actually means. There's been a few headlines that I don't think a lot of people have been paying attention to, and I think there's a lot of different things at play when looking at just this one issue. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. As I said before, this is the Breakaway Force, and why is it titled that? Because we're going to be talking about things like the Space Corp. We're going to be talking about things like Asgardia, space travel, and why, right now, they're trying to talk about these types of things. The similarities between JFK, Reagan, and Donald Trump. Weird things that are going on, and why is it happening? Why are we seeing them unfold today? So for timeline's sake, let's run it back. Let's run it back right here. Preparing for war. The U.S. is creating its first new military branch since 1947. Now, this is big. I talked about this back in June. We posted this back in June, earlier this year. And what we were actually trying to get across by doing this, by posting this type of information, is simply to illustrate the intentions of these people. Now, the Space Corp, it would be a branch of service within the Department of the Air Force. It would be the first one created since 1947. And why is that important? It's because we're talking about how they need new forms of defense, or at least authorized new forms of defense. The weaponization of space, Star Wars, these are definite things that have already happened. Obama actually signed, I think, it was the NDAA, and he put the Star Wars the evolution of the Star Wars Act in the National Defense Authorization Act in the 2016 version, I think. Let's see if we can look that up real quick. But the idea behind that is these people are trying to weaponize space. They're trying to take care of things in low Earth orbit. Now, for my flat Earth friends, and I'm sure, I'll catch flack for this, for my flat Earth friends, even if we are living in a plane on a dome, they will be right there on top of the, or at the bottom part of the firmament. What I mean by low Earth orbit, what we won't be able to perceive. If they already have the kinds of technology to where they can disguise crafts as clouds, then clearly they're able to actually disguise, cloak, and cover up their operations. You have Elon Musk over there making all kinds of different spaceships, rockets, new forms of travel, and things like this. Right here, let's get into this while we're here, and I'll come back to Elon Musk. Right there, House passes National Defense Authorization Act, debates Star Wars sequel. By a vote of 27 to 147 last month, the House passed its version of the fiscal year 2017 National Defense Authorization Act, NDAA, the annual defense policy measure, which is considered a must-pass bill. The Senate begins floor consideration of its own next week. Now, this was put up 2016, yeah, and it's by AIP. Yep, American Institute of Physics. Yep, June 2016, and this was put up June 23rd, so of 2017. So they're continuing an organized agenda. But continuing on, it says that the White House has threatened to veto the bill. It didn't, in issuing a lengthy statement detailing the administration's objections. The behemoth, as usual, bill clocks in at over 1,500 pages, and his accompanying committee report is just over 700 pages. Two sections of this particular interest are the Research, Development, Test, and Evaluation, RDT&E, provisions of the title, and the National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA, provision of the Title 31. All right, so this is crazy. But let me see if I can try to find the specific thing right there. Return of the debate about space-based missile defense. Just over 33 years ago, President Reagan gave a speech outlining his vision of comprehensive missile defense system capable of intercepting Soviet nuclear missiles. The resulting program, the Strategic Defense Initiative, nicknamed Star Wars. So the Strategic Defense Initiative, that's something you guys can go look up We'll try to get we'll try to get a PDF of it, you know, before before net neutrality kicks in. But this is the type of stuff I think we need to highlight, because these are things. Sci-fi is not that. This is what they're trying to do. That's their intentions. When they tell you they're nicknaming things like this, or they're trying to put it out there as if it's a test or a prototype, that's a lot of what you're seeing out there in Hollywood. That's why the CIA, that's why the DOD, that's why the DOE, that's why everybody's all up in Hollywood, because it's a big old I don't want to say it's an orgy, but it is an orgy. That's why we talk about technology. That's why we talk about dark magic. That's why we talk about the things that we talk about in this fashion, because this is the world that we're living in. But anyway, continuing on here, nicknamed Star Wars for its proposed use of space-based interceptors was the subject of much study and controversy. A study group convened by the American Physical Society, APS, an AIP member society, concluded in 1987 that the least a decade of intensive research would be required to make an informed decision about the feasibility of using direct energy weapons for missile defense. Is that what we're seeing in California? So what I'm going to try to get to, you know, so we can continue to move on. Clearly, they have space-based weapons. That's not up for debate. What we're talking about is what they're doing with the space-based weapons, what they're doing with the Space Force, how they're telling you, we're doing this now. If you don't think there's people out there past the ISS and what they tell you, whatever NASA lies about, who are actually out there, the privatization of space and the race for it, the colonization of it, like I said, still, for the flat earth friends, the people who are right there, just above the clouds that we can't see. If you don't think that there are people there already who are trying to govern over us, I can tell you that you're sadly mistaken. If you think that this AI grid isn't from them, or isn't from some otherworldly force that they're working with, then you've got to understand why this is so massive. So let me reel it in. Let me reel it in and make it that much more real for you guys. Like I said, preparing for war, the U.S. is creating its first new military branch since the 1947, the Space Corps. That was their intention. They already have it, but they're telling you that they're doing it now. So whenever we fast forward to today, to where we have Donald Trump, where he says he wants to plan to send astronauts back to the moon and establish an off-world base to get to Mars, that's not too far off. Let's see if we can get this video going for you guys of Donald Trump, where he's actually talking about this new directive that he has. I feel like this is, again, something that kind of got washed up in everything that's going on. I know it's hard to pay attention to one different thing, but let's take a listen.
We'll learn. The directive I'm signing today will refocus America's space program on human exploration and discovery. It marks an important step in returning American astronauts to the moon for the first time since 1972 for long-term exploration and use. This time, we will not only plant our flag and leave our footprint, we will establish a foundation for an eventual mission to Mars and perhaps someday to many worlds beyond. This directive will ensure America's space program once again leads and inspires all of humanity. The pioneer spirit has always defined America, and we're picking that up in many other fields. I think you see that. I think it's obvious. All you have to do is look at what's happening with the markets and all of the great things that are happening. We're leading in many different fields again, and it'll get more and more obvious as you go along. After braving the vast unknown, and we'll learn. The directive I'm signing today will
definitely make sure you guys go check out the full video. It's really important to listen to these types of things. You know, the same way we listened to General Mark Milley, where he talked about when he was addressing one of the ROTC anniversaries, how they were going to have to deal in the future with hybrid armies, little green men, and terrorists. And you tell me if that doesn't sound like our day and age today. Now, all of these things that I'm trying to highlight to you guys, and let's see if we can try to, I'll see if I can try to get that clip up for you guys, because it's important that we put all of this stuff together. What we're talking about with the science fiction future, with the Blade Runner reality, you know, with this predictive programming, with the space travel, all these things they're trying to tell us is just that it's predictive programming. That's why we see this dystopian future happening right now. where they're harvesting resources, where they're taking people, where they're scorching the earth, where they're trying to change the environment. This is geoengineering. This is post-weather modification. All of these things work together in the assault, not only against man, but in the future as well. So when we're looking at this, when we ask these questions about what this means for us, we have to ask, why are they saying these types of things, and what does this mean? So let's get this clip up for you guys, where we have General Mark Milley talking about hybrid armies and little green men in 2016.
If the world of 1916 was complex, or the world of 1945 was complex, the world of 2016 is intensely complex. And I can tell you that from personal experience, and I know there's many others who can tell you that as well. And you will graduate and be in that world, and you're going to be leading the soldiers and the sailors, the airmen and the Marines in that world. You'll be dealing with terrorists. You'll be dealing with hybrid armies. You'll be dealing with little green men. You're going to be dealing with tribes. You'll be dealing with national leaders and local leaders. You'll be dealing with politics and economics, and you'll be dealing with direct fire and indirect fire. And you're going to be dealing with it all. And it's all going to be dealt with
simultaneously.
And for that, you're going to have to be ready. And that's why readiness, in my mind, is number one.
I agree. I would not have said it better myself, and I tried to. But what we're talking about here, you know, is all of these things that we see unfolding right now. Like I said, our present, they tried to tell us that we were going to be seeing things happening. What does he mean by hybrid armies? Now, again, another thing that we touch on the show, the fact that we're dealing with bio-grinders, biohackers, transhumanists, people who are trying to modify their genes, modify their body. Why is this important? Because, again, if you look at the clues that these people are trying to leave to each other, there's a book coming out by the makers of the Illuminati card game called Transhuman Space. I think it's actually a game. I think it's an ebook and a game at the same time. But the idea behind it is that when we go into space, we won't be humans. And that's what I mean. So while transhumans will be trying to go into space, you'll also have people who are pure humans who have all of this advanced technology, all of these different things that come with the race to space. I mean, look at the technology that came post-World War II. Right? Look at what we're doing today. This is what Trump is talking about, unlocking the secrets of technology. And if you guys go back to the start of the year, where I talked about trumping in the technocracy, this is simply because of how things have to happen, the sequential order of events that will take place. This is why you have people like Peter Thiel talking about life extension, some vampire blood type of stuff, transfusing himself, doing weird, if you ask me, rituals. You have Jeff Bezos with Blue Origin. Look at how powerful Amazon is becoming. And Elon Musk, like I said, developing all of these rockets for the type of travel that these people will need. And I know we won't shooting for the. If you shoot for the stars, you'll at least land on the moon. Okay, we're not shooting for Mars. I mean, you can look at some of the pictures of them, and it looks like they're out there in Afghanistan, or out there in Pakistan, or out there in Australia. You know, and they just put a red filter on. There's all kinds of anomalies, and there's a lot of different things that they do and don't show you. So there's a lot of different lies that go on with these organizations. I'm not talking about traveling to Sirius B or any other crazy star distant planet. No. What I'm talking about is how these people are going to govern just above us if they haven't already. And if you guys pay attention to, and we talk about them creating aliens, us being the aliens, and all the other weird rituals and types of things that they have going on. But what I'm trying to illustrate by this is the fact that we have Donald Trump now telling us that we are going to be going underneath a new space directive. He wants to try to send people to the moon. And this is an actual article that you guys can check on our website right here. Donald Trump plans to send astronauts back to the moon and establish an off-world base to get to Mars. Again, the off-world colony idea. This is definitely something we continue to touch on throughout the show. how these people want to destroy the earth. You know, they want to destroy the earth with things like chemtrails, vaccines, GMOs, you name it. Pollution, plastics, a litany of chemicals, you know, Monsanto, glyphosate, dicamba, all the different things that they can try to throw at the planet. And if you hear, you know, if you hear some of the thoughts that I've had on this on this topic, it's not necessarily the planet they're trying to destroy. It's us who have become conditioned to live on the planet. But they're trying to destroy the exterior world so that they can not only put us into a digital matrix, but at the same time blast off. You see, and I know all of this stuff sounds crazy, but this is why they are the breakaway civilization. And the soft disclosure of them trying to send astronauts back to the moon. This is going to increase the space race. More technology is going to come out, or what we think about as advanced technology. They're going to basically push the Overton window with technology. I mean, they have had iPhones and iPads and Star Trek forever. So we're about to see new things. This is why they're trying to push things like the chip, implants, again, hacking your biology. All of these things are intertwined with this coming agenda. Let's get into this article. It says, when it comes to space affairs, it's no secret that not all activities are disclosed. This is the case with the most infamous side of the military-industrial complex. Our most advanced and complex technologies are, as the second director of Lockheed Skunkworks, Ben Rich, once said, being hidden from us. Quote, we already have the means to travel among the stars, but these technologies are being locked up in black projects, and it would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity. Anything you can imagine, we already know how to do. So replicators, they're down for that. What are 3D bioprinters? Okay, and this is, again, more the socioeconomic reformation. They call these things disruptive technologies simply because if they introduced them to technology at the time, it would change the way in which society acted. I mean, think about that. They have cars that can run on water. We all know this. But what would happen? That would disrupt everything. So what is their plan? Nope, we're not going to have it run on water, which is an abundant resource. We're going to pollute the water. Their plan is to have it run on electricity. And if you guys have paid attention to some of the previous episodes where I've talked about things like them trying to sell us free energy, the clear option would be to go with water, right? Because that's easily recyclable. You got to keep a charge with electric. But again, you know, these are things that we're moving more into. We really have to highlight what this all means. But let me continue on here. It says, this was also the recent sentiment of Steve Justice, a recently retired director of 30 years of Lockheed Skunkworks. He mentioned that calling these technologies revolutionary would be an understatement, and plans to bring forth a statement to the public. And quote, international point-to-point transportation craft that will erase the current travel limits of distance and time, end quote. He also mentioned unidentified aerial phenomena commonly known as UFOs, stating that the craft he and his team plan to build and make public actually, quote, mimics the capabilities observed in unidentified aerial phenomena by employing a drive system that alters the space-time metric. And you guys can read more about that on this whole article, but the whole point I'm trying to make by getting into this is how, you know, Donald Trump is now saying that we are going to go to Mars. We're going to release these technologies. They're going to be available to the public. You can have access to them now. But we know we won't even get the fullest extent of them. We'll just be getting a little sliver of what they will try to release to us. The reason why I wanted to try to point all this stuff out to you guys is because we really have to see the time that we're in. This is, again, why we have to focus on things like Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030. The idea of them harvesting resources, trying to create this dystopian reality to where human life has become so replaceable, either with machines or growing babies, with ectogenesis, designer humans, and things like this. A life doesn't have as much of a significance as the Earth. You see, but this is how we're turning into that time. Like I said, if you go back to the start of the year where I talked about my thoughts on what Trump was going to do prior to him doing all of these things. We're seeing that. We're seeing how things like Bitcoin are getting rise. We're seeing things like the dollar devalue. We're seeing things like climate change become important because, again, we have to realize how these people see themselves as the saviors of Earth. They have this crazy God complex. The crazy God complex. To where, you know, Emmanuel Macron called himself Jupiter and said, you know what? I am a peaceful God. But that's how these people act, as if they can pass down righteous judgment on us. So think about that. They want to break away from civilization as much as they already have. They've become comfortable in the fact that they know they're no longer human, that these spineless people, these weird people who don't resemble what we would consider actually human, who don't have like true compassion, these reptilians, you know, these evil people, these wicked Luciferians, these technocrats, these people. And that's what you really have to look at. It's a cadre of them all. It's a cauldron. It's a group. It's a collective of creeps. It's the Legion of Doom. Because that's how these people really are. And I use a comic book analogy to make it easier to understand, to see like how crazy things really are. These people are trying to blast off into space, commit gigadeath, and say, you know what? This was the righteous thing to do. That humans are a cancer upon this planet. But this is the eventual goal. What you've got to realize is I'm talking about all kinds of different timelines, all existing, all at the same time. It's wild. The timeline that we're in right now, the race to space, this new directive to the moon and to the Mars, what this is going to do is it's going to drive the best of the best humans, the best plants, the best animals. And then that's not going to be enough. They're going to modify them. They're going to have people who are at peak physical perfection. And this is where you get into eugenics, epigenetics, evolution, and directed evolution. And like I said, genetic modification, all these different types of things are interactive. They're intertwined. It's going to drive all of this. That's whenever you get designer babies. But like Trump said, this is that pioneer spirit. We really have to look at the time frame that we're in and the things these people are trying to say to us. And I think this is, if you ask me, I think the idea of going to space, simply the idea of going to space, I think that this is good. And I talked about that before at the start of the year. We need something to direct us. We need something to move us forward. We are so stuck on virtue signaling, racism, nonsense, and any other false flag attack that happens. You know, feeling bad for whoever's, the crybaby of the week that we see because it went viral. We should feel bad. No, we don't need that. What we need is like a common goal. I talk about this too. In this little community of ours, we need a common goal of unity, of unification. This is the culture war. But now, like I said, this directive of space, this gives everybody something to do. There's a lot of different things that come with this, and that's why I wanted to do this mini cast. Because while we're highlighting the fact that this breakaway force is doing what it's doing, we have to realize that they're ramping up their efforts, and sometimes their things can't go unnoticed. So what they're trying to do is pawn this off, get the best of the best because of all the different technologies that we have right now, harvesting people, harvesting resources. I mean, think about it. Some of these kids, they get out from high school or they get out from middle school and Google snatches them up. Google snatches them up. Facebook snatches them up. NSA snatches them up. FBI snatches them up. And then they create this political class of people who don't necessarily have social abilities, but are wards of the state, who are just part of this system right off of the bat. You see, but even then, they'll take that cream of the crop, and then they'll take them to even higher. There's a lot of different things that come with this, and it'll trickle down to the common level. but we really have to look at what I've always called the socioeconomic reformation. There's a lot of different things going on with this, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that I don't think people understand what this means. This isn't just, yay, we're going to space. This means saddle up, pull up your britches, because things are about to get a little crazy. And I hope all of this nonsense stops the racism. That's what I would hope. But humanity loves to try to find reasons to make villains. So we'll see. We'll see. But like I said, this is the Breakaway Force. However, that's all I really have for you guys. I know I kind of bounced all over the place, but if anything, go back and listen to those episodes. Go back and think about some of the things that we've talked about. Why is this important? Why are we looking at the race to space? What does this mean for society? What does this mean for you? Do you even care? Should we care? And like I said, I know I'll catch flack from my flat earth friends, but still I feel like this is something that we need to talk about. Not only will this affect the environment, but this will affect society. This will affect the mindset. And more of these types of things will unfold as we move forward into the future. But I felt like it was imperative that we at least highlight it before it gets washed away in the swamps of news, the swamps of nonsense, the swamps of racism, the swamps of whatever, pedophilia, whatever happens. But like I said, that's all I really have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. And as always, guys, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.